Kapellusch, could you state your first name and last name and spell both for the benefit of the court reporter?
Sure, it's Lynley Kapellusch, Lynley. Last name is Kapellusch.
Did you know Mark? And how is it that you knew Mr. Jensen?
We work together.
Can you tell us where you work together?
Robert W. Baird and Company,
And where was that?
Wisconsin. There from August of '96 until August of 2002.
And at some point between August of '96 and August of 2002, did Mark Jensen also work there?
Correct.
And do you recall during what time frame he worked there?
Started until I believe June of '98.
And what was Mr. Jensen's job at Robert W. Baird?
Financial advisor.
And what was your job at Robert W. Baird?
I believe it was receptionist, sales assistant, I'm sorry.
As the receptionist and sales assistant, did you answer all incoming calls to Robert W. Baird?
Yes, I answered the incoming calls. I was the first one to answer them, and then they bounced back to other women that I worked with if I was on the phone.
Okay. And at that time, did the financial advisors have direct lines that clients could call into directly, or did calls filter through you first?
They came into me first.
Between August of '96 and June of '98, having a problem with harassing or annoying phone calls at work?
No.
Did he ever indicate that he was having a problem with harassing type mail or envelopes being left for him either on his car in the parking lot or coming through the mail at Robert W. Baird?
No.
When he started in August of '96, did he inform you that he had had a problem with harassing calls or mail at his prior place of employment?
When I started?
When he started, did he ever inform you
He
that...
was already working there.
Okay. So when you started then, did he ever forewarn you that this had possibly been a problem at his prior place of employment?
No.
Do you know whose responsibility it was to open the mail at Robert W. Baird?
That was the office supervisor.
And do you recall who that was?
Joan Scully.
Did Miss Scully open all mail?
Yes, she did, except for when she was gone on vacation or was not there, and then I would open mail.
During the times that Miss Scully was gone, did you ever open mail addressed to Mark Jensen that contained any type of pornographic or sexually explicit photographs or images?
No.
Did you also know Julie Jensen during that time?
Yes.
And how is it that you came to know Mrs. Jensen?
When she came into the office is when I met her. She would come in to see Mark.
How often would she come in?
Not often. I mean, it wasn't, every week or every month, just sporadic.
When she came in, would she bring?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to observe her interactions with her children?
Objection, Judge, because of the time frame involved here.
What's the relevance?
The relevance is that the defense is alleging this history of odd behavior by Mrs. Jensen, and it's apparent to
What
everyone.
are we talking about?
We're talking between August of 96 and June of 98.
Overall.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Did you have an with children?
When she was in the house, yes.
And what did you observe?
As far as, I mean, she was seemed like a very loving mother, if that's what you mean, as far as, you know, they would come in and we would say hi, and then they'd go into Mark's office. So it wasn't like we sat and, you know, just talked with her. I mean, we would a few minutes, and then they'd go in the office.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Holman?
Thank you. Mrs. Kapellusch?
Kapellusch.
Kapellusch. When you began in, you said August of 1996, Mark Jensen was working there already?
Correct.
And was it your understanding that he had been working there for a number of years?
I wasn't sure how long he had been there before me.
He wasn't a recent hire, though.
No.
He was pretty well established in that office.
Correct.
During the time you worked with Mark, which was from August 1996 to June 1998, I take it you'd have no reason to recall whether anyone hung up on you at that time when you were answering the phone.
Not that I can recall, no.
I mean, but that is, if you answered the phone and it was dead air, that wouldn't be of such significance that you'd bother to remember it 10 years later. Would that be fair to say?
Right, correct.
When people would call Mark Jensen at the office, would you log the calls?
No.
If somebody asked for Mark Jensen, you just let Mark know that there was somebody on the line?
Correct, or take a message.
You didn't necessarily even inquire as to what was the identity of the person calling?
We usually did. I mean, we usually would say, may I say who's calling, because the brokers or the financial advisors would like to know.
This was a sales office, essentially, correct? Mm-hmm. You have to answer yes for the
Yes.
reporter.
I'm sorry.
No problem. So I take it they generally wanted to accept calls even from people they wouldn't recognize because it's a potential sales call.
Correct. If it was, their day to take calls, walk-ins or someone calling in that's not a client, they would get calls from people they wouldn't. No.
And sometimes people would call that specifically for Mark or one of the other brokers that hadn't previously called, I take it.
Correct.
Where are you currently employed?
For the county of Kenosha,
Where do you work?
in the jail.
What do you do at the Kenosha County Jail?
I am an admission and release specialist.
What was the first time anyone spoke with you regarding whether you received any unusual calls during the time between August 1996 and June 1998?
As far as who? Anyone?
Law enforcement or the prosecution?
That was fall of last year?
Fall of 2007?
Correct.
I take it you hadn't had any reason prior to that time to think much about what kind of calls you answered between 1996 and 1998?
Correct. No.
Did Mark, well, let me ask this. Did Mark Jensen to his wife having an affair?
No.
Would you and Mark Jensen have had those kind of personal kinds of conversations?
No.
Sorry about that. Let me show you Defense Exhibit 20. Ms. Kapellusch, show you a postcard that's the last page of Defendant's Exhibit 20. Have you ever seen that postcard before?
No.
That postcard is addressed to Baird and Company, correct?
Correct.
At 5525 Green Bay Road in Kenosha?
Correct.
Is that the address where you worked with Mr. Jensen?
Correct.
And that postcard is also postmarked, correct?
Yes.
Take that back from you. And you don't recall this one way or another?
No.
This postcard? If I may have permission to publish it, Judge?
Objection volumes.
She stated she cannot identify.
That's right.
So why would you publish it?
It's admitted into evidence already, and it showed, just to show that it was addressed to Baird and Company at that address. Sure.
The objection's overruled.
And that's the postcard it's behind you there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's the postcard I was just showing you as
Correct.
part of Exhibit 20, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And again, it's postmarked, and that's the address where you did work during that period of time. True?
Correct.
I take it that even if someone swore at you on the phone 9 or 10 years ago, that might not have made such an impression that you'd recall it today.
I've had that happen.
Wouldn't be able to identify what the
No.
purpose was.
No.
No.
You may step down.
Could you please state your first name, last name, and spell your last name?
Scully, S-C-U-L-L-Y.
Ms. Scully, did you know Mark Jensen?
Yes,
And did you in fact work with him?
yes.
Do you recall where it was that you worked with Mark Jensen?
Robert Baird and Company?
And at what time were you employed at Robert Baird?
With Mark or in my entire
Let's
time?
start with when you
1984,
worked there.
2004.
At some point, did Mark Jensen join the office?
I think it was either 1992 or 93. Probably 93.
And how long did Mr. Jensen work at Robert W. Baird?
Till 1998.
Did he leave Robert W. Baird to go to Stiefel, Nicholas, and Racine?
Yes.
Okay. What was your job at Baird between 1992, 93 to 1998?
We opened the new branch in Kenosha, and I had worked in Racine, and I went with the manager at Baird to join the Kenosha branch. My title was Branch Operations Supervisor.
What were some of your responsibilities as branch operations supervisor?
It was mainly in the clerical end with the.
Did you open all mail that came into Robert W. Baird?
I did, or one of the other assistants would.
Was it your primary responsibility?
Yes.
And why is it that you opened the mail that came into Robert W. Baird?
I think I might have even started earlier, so I just did. There was a morning envelope that came from the home office, but our regular mail came at noon, so I would pick that up on my way back from lunch.
Do you know whether the brokers were permitted open their own mail?
They just never did.
Okay.
No. They weren't.
During the time that Mark Jensen worked at Robert W. Baird, did he ever indicate to you that he was receiving mail that contained sexually explicit photos?
No.
Did he ever indicate that he was receiving packages or envelopes on his car window in the parking lot, sexually explicit photos?
I don't think so, no.
Did he ever?
Pardon, I didn't hear your answer.
I don't think so. I don't really remember him ever.
Did he ever indicate to you that he was being harassed in any way at the workplace?
No.
During the time that you would open mail addressed to Mark Jensen, well, did you open mail addressed to Mark Jensen?
I may have, don't.
Do you remember whether you opened any Mark Jensen that contained any sexual? Someone who had a serious broker's license, what would their job function or job responsibility?
An assistant registered, and she would be able to actually take orders from clients.
How would that person take orders? By what mechanism? In person, by phone?
It would probably be a phone call if the broker she assisted was on another line, and then she could help the client.
Do you know at that time in 1990 or 91 whether orders were placed over the internet?
I don't think they were on the internet. They went through our system.
Your system, can you describe that system at that time?
I think we had regular stations for listed stocks would go to one station, and the over-the-counter would go to another station in Milwaukee. I'm a little behind on the time. Eventually, I believe the brokers could enter their own. So a ticket would come up and you'd fill in the
And was
order.
this done by phone? Placing the orders was done by phone?
over the computer.
Okay. But back in 1990 or 1991, was it done?
It was done on one of the machines,
Not a computer?
but not like an internet computer.
Nothing further.
Mr. Robbie?
Computer as opposed to like the
It would be just to email back and, not email, that's wrong. No, send messages to them all. We did money that way. We did, I think we had a log securities that came through, and the orders were put through that way.
so some sort of pre-internet computer communication kind of thing?
Yeah.
Your office, Ms. Scully, was at 5525 Green Bay Road?
Correct.
About a telephone call at the Jensen's house from a Tina Thomas whose address was 6015 55th Street. Would that have been near that address on Green Bay Road?
60,
6015 55th Street in Kenosha?
we were right at the intersection of 56th, I believe. 56 streets, or is that avenues that, but,
And so would that be pretty close to your office then? 6015 55th Street?
sounds like it.
Yeah, okay. Let me ask if you've ever seen a particular postcard, and I'll just ask you to turn your attention to the screen behind you. Do you recall ever seeing this postcard? It's the last page of Defendant's Exhibit 20.
No,
That is the address.
that is our address.
And that postcard also was, has a postmark on it, correct? You have to say yes for the
Yes.
court report. Okay, so if that came into the office while you were there, you apparently didn't personally receive that, or you just don't recall it?
I don't recall that at all. No.
Okay. Did Mr. Joan ever speak with you about his wife having an affair, do you recall?
No.
Would you have had that kind of personal conversation with Mr. Jensen?
No.
I take it you're not aware of Mr. Jensen actually receiving any kinds of packages at work during that period of time, correct? And you have no idea whether he's ever claimed that he received any kind of pornographic
No.
items at work during that time, correct?
Correct.
Thanks. I think you were asked whether you opened Mark Jensen's mail specifically, and was it your answer that you can't remember for sure?
Well, I would have opened any mail that came into the office
Okay.
and then made copies of the letters and then they look at it.
You took mail that came at noon for
Office.
okay.